I think it's a connection you have with someone, and not just like, of course, like you have connections with your friends, but in a way that you want to experience more than just being friends with someone on like every level, emotional, physical.
So, romantic attraction to me seems like when you've reached that point with someone, you've like developed a closeness and you've like your values match up in a way that you want a deeper intimacy with that person.
Other than the obvious, probably if that person is a good talker, can carry on a great conversation, you know, if you can talk to somebody for hours and make it seem like minutes, then that would be romantic attraction to me.
Yeah, myself, I love eyes. I mean, I've always been attracted to eyes. Of course, everybody likes a pretty face, but it seems like when you look at somebody's eyes, you can see a lot more of them than if you're looking at their body or if you're just looking at some part other than their face. The eyes tell a really great story, especially in her case. I mean, if I'd have known right away, what kind of a virtuous woman that she'd be all these years, I mean, just looking at her eyes, you can see that. That's the kind of thing that attracted me.
I define it as physical more than cerebral. Although sometimes you can meet somebody cerebrally and it becomes romantic. But I think for most of us, it's physical. It's like, I love dark hair and dark eyes, and he did have dark hair when we met. And he had the beautiful dark eyes. He had a good looking figure, which for a lot of us, we have a certain style that we like. And I think that's what catches your eye first is the visual, and then you go from there.
I think the eyes are the biggest thing for me. If the eyes catch me, then I look further. But if I don't get caught by the eyes, then I don't look any further.
His love for everyone, and like his family is like his number one thing, and I find that very attractive, and he'll like do anything for them, and I just think that is so attractive, and of course his looks, but like
For me, God, I gotta say how cute she is. Like, just personality, like who you are. You, early on, you played off of my humor just so well. And my humor is not,
terrible.
yeah. So, like, the way that you just kind of got me.
For me, being attracted to him was his personality. Again, he was probably the funniest guy I've ever met, and just always kept me laughing. And it was he was really fun to be around.
Well, I just think that when we first met, what attracted me is the way that she looked at me, like really intent, like she wanted to learn everything about me, and that was like, and that makes you feel special. So when you feel special, it just creates a greater attraction. So I mean, I felt very special just by the way she was looked. Like when we danced, like when we went on our first date and stuff like that. When we danced, it was so great because just the way she was looking at me, like I'm the only thing that mattered in her life. So that was really cool.
She was so easy to talk to. When we were dancing, we chatted most of the time we were dancing, so it was really kind of just nice that you could just talk and not have to worry about what you said. Yeah.
Impressing anyone, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and because I had chosen not to be a mother, I was steered clear of all men out there who had small toddlers. I didn't want to raise anybody else's children. But he impressed me because, as he said, we talked a lot. But he talked about a 12 and a 14-year-old. And I thought, okay, that doesn't bother me so much. And I'm impressed that a man is out in the bar, typically looking for a woman, but actually talking about his kids.
I think as far as the numbers go, because I'm kind of a numbers guy, like the number of people that are looking for or getting into like long-standing relationships and waiting until marriage has been pretty similar throughout the years. I know that as far as what we portray in the media and what we've tried to sort of push is for a more like sexually open society, and I'm pretty supportive of that. I'm all about, you know, not shaming people for their choices to do whatever they want to do. But I just think a lot of people feel like there's nobody left to try to get in a real relationship with, but there's so many people that are actually looking for those deep connections and that long-standing love and that person who's going to be open and trustworthy and honest and take care of them, and they can take care of them as well.
I don't think they've changed that much. I feel like now we are just a little bit more open, because I feel like a lot of people think that relationships aren't as, like, lasting relationships aren't as common, but I feel like someone's more, I don't know how to describe it, more not afraid to get out of a relationship.
I think that it's not true. They're not, I think these days, and I know I'm dating myself, but do kids even know about romance? You know, it's, what do I want to say? They're very, I don't want to say shallow, narrow-minded, but they see something that looks nice and they got to have it. You know, like a little kid, you know, at a toy store. You know, instant gratification, they got to have it, and they don't think about any of the consequences, you know, for what happens afterwards. If there is an afterward, you know, it's just, it's really different these days.
I just think that today's young people they're just worried about themselves and how they look and how they with what their like level is on their Facebook account or whatever account, Twitter or whatever other social medium that they're on. And I just don't think that anybody else matters in their life. And again, the self-gratification is a lot of it. But I mean, if you can't communicate with somebody without looking at your phone, and you can't sit there and look in their eyes, or maybe listen to some music, or go for a walk, or do something physical, you're never going to get to that level of affection with each other, especially when you're just worried about yourself and you know, it's like it's all about them. So that's why I think the young people are now, very selfish.
I would say, just looking at the American population, because when you go to other nations, of course, things are so different. And in we're white Americans, so I would narrow my focus even to that, because cultures are different. I would say that, in a way, a lot of it has stayed traditional. I notice that young people still move in groups, which is what I did and what Jerry did. The physical, sadly, for better or for worse, is still very important. People who are too skinny or too overweight are not picked as quickly often. People who are more cerebral, or like with me, I wore glasses all my life until I was about 20, and you know, you just assumed you were homely. Nobody would want to date you because you had glasses. Some of that has fallen away, and I think part of that might be the way the kids dress. You know, we kind of were always dressing to impress each other, and I'm not saying that's been lost, but face it, you know, girls are in basketball shorts and sweating, and hockey equipment, and just like the boys are. So boys and girls starting in like high school and going forward into the 20s, when you get more serious, they see each other so much differently than we did growing up. And that might be healthier. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's harder now. I mean, with social media and things like that, I think it's more difficult. You can find out anything about anybody online, so it's probably a little different than back when we were dating, where
you had to talk to people.
Yeah.
You actually had to talk to
You had to
people.
actually ask the questions rather than go online and get the answers, so.
Yeah.
And I find that, the younger generation texts more. I mean, we were at a party a few years back at a graduation, and there were 4 girls sitting at a table, and they didn't talk to each other, they texted each other. So I think, I think that's a lot different than, you used to have to call someone to get a date, now they text.
Yes.
So I think it's a little different.
Compassion and someone to end their life with, like to have throughout their life. And I feel like that's kind of still what we want in the end. But I feel like it's also different for every couple.
When it comes to the older generation, they don't really have time to play games and mess around and just like date like that. Or at least a lot of people don't feel like they have that sort of time. Those that do feel like they have that time tend to have, I think, a nicer time with it. But for the older generation, there's a lot of like life that's already been lived and stuff that they've figured out they don't want to go through again. And for some of them, they're realizing their mortality and they want somebody to be there with them and sort of just keep them company and be like a deep connection that is just going to be satisfying in their soul. I guess for a lot of people who are younger, they're looking for love and acceptance, and somebody that they can depend on. People call it ride or die, and I guess that's been a term for a while, but that's what everybody's really looking for if they're looking for a relationship, is somebody who's going to stick with them through the thick and thin.
Oh, I think companionship. A lot of my older friends, they've done the marriage and, their partner dies, whatever. And a little bit of finances play into that. A few of my elderly friends will not get married again because they don't want to lose their dead spouse's pension. So it is a little bit finances involved. But I think mostly companionship. They want to have somebody by their side too. But not to the extreme of maybe not get married again. That's my experience.
I just think, older people, they don't want to be lonely. I mean, even when I was in my late 20s and 30s, I didn't want to be alone, so I can't imagine wanting or having to be alone in their 80s. So I think they want the love, they want the companionship, like Carrie said. They also want the warmth, and they just want to go all on a high note, their golden years, by spending it with somebody and being together and sharing it.
It's money. It's how much money do you make a year? What kind of car do you drive? Do you own or rent? College. How much college debt do you have? Because they want to know that going into a relationship. They want to. Everybody wants to see each other's books, because I believe it's all about money.
I just don't think. Again, I'm going to go back to the selfishness thing. I mean, I know it's a lot about money. I just don't think that they're capable of even engaging in the kind of conversations and the kind of things that we've done since the 80s that they're doing right now. It's like nobody can communicate at all anymore without looking at a screen or sitting down or playing a game or watching a TV set. Not out hiking or not out, doing something physical. Or again, just going for a simple ride. I just don't think that they're interested in that anymore.
I think the younger generation is more attuned to financials.
A lot of them are, that's true.
They're not going to fall in love just to fall in love. I think they're going to be more knowledgeable about money. I get that feeling anyways. I don't know if it's true or not, but I would think that, yeah.
And as a flaming feminist, I am seriously happy to see young women being far more independent and a lot more critical about lining up their lives with a live-in partner. You know, if in my era, if I wasn't married by 21, which I almost wasn't, it was just like, oh my God, I'm going to be a spinster. Nobody will ever love me. And I mean, I've got a great niece who's going to turn 30 in January, and she doesn't even have a serious boyfriend. She owns her own house. She's an RN. She's got a life. I mean, she's a whole person. And my generation of women, you couldn't even hardly think in that concept.